All right, let's check your answers and see how you did. So remember, you had to read through those 2 paragraphs and then answer the questions about George Foreman and Muhammad Ali and use that text evidence from the selection to support your response. So let's get checking here. All right. First paragraph said, despite his audacious claims that he would win the fight, no one gave Muhammad Ali much of a chance to win the big 1974 fight, the Rumble in the Jungle. His opponent, George Foreman, was the current world champion and had beaten 2 other legendary fighters, both of whom had defeated Ali previously. Foreman was years younger than Ali and one of the hardest hitters in boxing. Some people were scared that Foreman might accidentally kill Ali in the ring. So first paragraph here, which is what our question number 1 is asking us, does the writer use direct or indirect characterization to describe George Foreman in paragraph 1? So paragraph 1 is using direct characterization. Okay, so we're typing in that answer, direct characterization. All right, now I'm going to make it a different color and font to make it easier to read. So they are using direct characterization. Now I need to underline the evidence in the text that supports our answer to question 1. So we're only looking at paragraph 1. Okay, we're only looking at paragraph 1 because that's what question 1 was about. So I'm only going to look here for that direct characterization about George Foreman. So right here where it says his opponent, George Foreman, was the current world champion and had beaten 2 other legendary fighters who had defeated Ali previously. All right. Again, direct characterization is when the author is just telling us point blank about the character. We don't have to make an assumption or an inference at all. He was the current world champion. That's fact. That's what he was. We don't have to guess that. He had beaten 2 other legendary fighters. Again, that's describing George Foreman. He's beaten 2 other fighters. Again, that's fact. That's nothing we have to infer. That's just, we know it. And then both of whom had defeated Ali previously. So again, those fighters who George Foreman beat had also beaten Ali. Okay? I don't have to guess. I don't have to infer that. It's telling me point blank about the fighters and what George Foreman had done. So I'm going to underline those. So I've highlighted the text. I'm going to go up to my toolbar. I'm going to click underline, and I'm actually going to change the text color just to make it easier to see. All right. So his opponent, George Foreman, was the current world champion. Again, I can look that up and I don't have to guess that. He'd beaten 2 other legendary fighters, and both of those fighters had defeated Ali. All right. That is the direct characterization, and I've underlined that. For question 3, does the writer use direct or indirect characterization to describe Muhammad Ali in paragraph 2? So, paragraph 2. Prior to the fight, Ali had boasted about how agile his fighting style was and that this style would help him defeat Foreman. He had declared that he would run circles around Foreman until he was exhausted and defeated. He had even written a little rap about it. Now you see me, now you don't. George thinks he will win, but I know he won't. It is with rhymes like that one, not to mention his shining personality, that Ali got many of his fans on his side. All right, so does the writer use direct or indirect characterization? Well, here he is using indirect characterization. So indirect characterization. All right, I'm going to change the color on that. Oops, I want to make it bold. All right, changing the color, and I might bold that out too. And it looks like I misspelled characterization, so we'll just fix that. All right, so used indirect characterization there. So now I've got to go back and defend my answer and identify and cite that evidence with that circle. All right. Here is how we're going to do that. So I'm going to pick my shape. I'm going to go to the circle. All right. So Ollie had boasted about his agile fighting style, and that was a style and this style would help him defeat Foreman. So when the author says he had boasted about it, that is that indirect characterization. All right. He is describing. That word boast makes me think that Ali is pretty sure of himself. Okay, I had to infer that he's pretty sure of himself because the author used that word boast. All right, so Ali had boasted about how agile his fighting style was, and that style would help him defeat Foreman. He had declared to the world that he would run circles around Foreman. So when the author says he had declared, that's another way of saying he said this. So we're taking the author or the person's words. All right. So Ali was saying this, saying that he would run circles. So if you think back to that steel chart, what the character says or what the person says. So he's saying he would run circles around Foreman until he was exhausted and defeated. He even had written a little rap. So again, even quotation marks here. Those let us know that Ali is saying something. So again, if you think back to that steel chart, what the person says also helps us figure out what kind of person he is in that characterization. So I'm actually going to circle all of this. So I've got my circle, and right now I'm just going to make it really big because I can adjust it here in a little bit. So I'm going to take my circle and adjust it around. So really all of this is that characterization, and I'm going to change that line color to red, and I can even make it a little thicker if I want. Okay, so I've got most of it in there. All right, and I'm actually going to move this out of the way for a moment because I want to highlight everything that is that indirect characterization as well. I want to change the color of that. So now I'm going to move my circle back. Okay. So there I have the indirect characterization. So I had to infer all of that based on what he was saying and what the author described him as saying with that boasted. So now I'm going back over here and I'm going to answer that question. So question 5 says, because of this characterization, what can you infer about George Foreman and Muhammad Ali? Cite specific evidence from the text to support your inference. So making my inference, and remember, whenever we answer the question, we use part of the question in our answer. All right, so this characterization, I'm going to go up here again and change my font. I'm going to change the color so it's easily read. So this characterization leads me to infer that although George Foreman was an outstanding boxer, Muhammad Ali was wiser and used a better strategy to win the fight. Okay, that's the answering the question, all right? But now I've got to cite some evidence for that, okay? So Ali was, or in the text, no. So Ali, sorry, that's just the thought process. Ali was obnoxiously confident in the text. His little rap, and I'm using quotation marks around little rap because it says it right here in the text. His little rap about how he would beat Foreman shows his confidence and also his cockiness. Okay? And again, my fingers did not want to type out characterization there. All right, so right there is our answer. That's the inference I can make. I inferred that although George Foreman was that outstanding boxer, Muhammad Ali was wiser and used a better strategy to win the fight. I also inferred that Ali was obnoxiously confident. And in the text, his little rap about how he would beat Foreman shows that he is very confident and he's also a little cocky. All right, so that's how you are going to, or those are the answers for the we do, the practice. Now you're going to go back into Canvas or go into Canvas and complete the assignment, which is over Barrington, Irving, Pilot, and Educator. Okay, so you're going to do just what we did with the Muhammad Ali example, and you're going to apply that to Barrington, Irving. So in paragraph 1, is it direct or indirect? In paragraph 7, is it direct or indirect? Identify the evidence in each of those paragraphs by either circling or underlining, and then you are going to make an inference about Barrington, Irving. So this is your assignment for today.